Hey, what's up, and welcome back to the HK Rifle Works YouTube channel. So I've got a really exciting video series for us today. We're going to be taking a quick look at the Aero Solus barreled action, and what we're going to do is we are going to build a custom rifle ourselves around this barreled action. So I'm going to put this video in three specific parts, I think. So part number one is essentially we are going to be doing stock work. We're going to be looking at inletting of the stock. We're going to be looking at adding texturing to the stock. We're going to be looking at priming, and then we're also going to be looking at paint. So on video two, we're going to do a full bedding job on the rifle. Well, the bedding job's already done, but I'll do a full bedding job, just show you how I do my bedding jobs on the rifle. And then on video three, I'm going to take you over the complete build list, and then we will hit the bench and I'll take you through all of my initial hand loading data on the rifle. So if you're interested on seeing how this rifle shoots, if you're interested in bedding, if you're interested in the build list, stick around. But for now, I want to focus on the stock, how we prepped it, how we inletted it, how we painted it. So let's get started there. All right, let's take a look at a little bit of this stock work here. Now, before we jump in, I did want to mention my original idea and kind of vision for this rifle was going to be more of a DARPA XM3 inspired or semi-clone rifle, if that makes sense. I will say I had a really good lead on a Macmillan stock, a Remington Action, some components that would lean into being a close clone to the XM3. Those essentially fell through, so this is the route that I went. I wanted to go with a little bit heavier barrel, a little shorter, 308, and this is what we ended up with. So I wanted to make mention of that, just kind of give you my backstory on the rifle and kind of what brought me here. So looking at this stock and looking at the action, I did want to make mention that the Aero Precision Solus, it is a Remington 700 footprint action, but the stock, this is a Grayboe Renegade. I found it for a killer deal. They were having a clearance sale on it. But it is inletted for a Remington 700. So I just want to make mention before we jump in, Remington 700 footprint and then being inletted for a Remington 700. It's not necessarily the exact same thing. Like Grayboe makes a specific inlet for the Aero Precision Solus. And the reason I mention that is everything bolts up fine. Like the bolt spacing is fine. The action fits fine. The thing on the Aero Precision Solus is that it has a slightly lengthened ejection port to the rear. It needs an inlet and a cutout for the bolt release. It needs inletting for the trigger hanger in front of the rear pillar. Okay, so some of the things that we did first is make sure the stock was inletted properly, right? So, and what I mean by that is, since it is a Remington 700 footprint rifle and we are dropping in an Aero Precision Solus into this, the thing that I had to do is I had to take some files, and I did take a little rotary tool. I know there's a lot of just funny, I'll say, memes on the internet about if you have a Dremel, then you're a gunsmith. But I will say having a good rotary tool, and if you know what to do, especially working on some of these stocks, it's really, really nice to be able to take off material that you need and finish it up with some hand tools to make sure everything is radiused correctly and everything's equidistant, if you will, and just looks right and doesn't look goofy or done after drinking a few beers. But anyways, jumping into this, the first thing that we had to do is I had to lengthen this ejection port to match the contour and the ejection port length of the Aero Precision Solus. Wasn't a super big deal, didn't take long to do. I also included a relief cut here on the left side of this stock to accommodate the side bolt release. Usually all factory Remington 700s, I think, other than that new Alpha model, come with a bottom inside the trigger mounted bolt release. But the Aero Precision Solus, just like some of the custom actions, they come with a side bolt release here, which is my preference. The stock just needed inletted for that. And then lastly, in terms of inletting here on the action side, since the Aero Precision Solus utilizes a trigger hanger and the Remington 700 does not, the Remington 700 essentially just holds the trigger in by two cross pins, and the Solus uses a hanger, it didn't have enough room in front. Essentially, there was fiberglass in front of that rear pillar, so I just had to remove that to allow space for that trigger hanger there. So moving forward, the front and kind of the fore end of the rifle, the barrel channel, it was inletted for, I guess, Remington's varmint or their Sendero profile. not a heavier M24 or MTU profile like this Aero Solus uses. I think this is an M24 profile. So what I did here, and this is going to be some of the one of the easiest ways to open up your barrel channel. It's going to sound almost like caveman, like very, very basic. But what I did is I took a socket, right? Like a socket that you would use on a ratchet. And I wrapped it in some sandpaper and I just went down the barrel channel fore and aft, essentially opening that barrel channel up. Now you have to be careful not to press to one side or the other, or press to, you want to make sure everything is going to be even around there. So just kind of, I took my time, trial and errored this, fit the action, made sure it free floated after everything was done, and it turned out great. I mean, the barrel fits well. It's super, super easy to do. I mean, all this is pretty easy to do. But I just wanted to mention, like, if you ever want to open up a barrel channel, that's a great way to do it, and it kind of keeps everything even there and makes the most sense to do so. So other than inletting, and when it comes to inletting, that is everything that I've done in this case to the stock. And I'll be rolling in pictures. You've probably already seen a few. I'll be rolling in pictures as we're talking. So the next thing that I did on the stock is look at adding texture. So you can't see because the stock's painted, but in the forend here and then on the palm swell here, there is essentially texturing. Now I have a whole video of how to do this on the channel. I mean, it's a step-by-step guide. It rolls in all the pictures, everything like that. But essentially what this is it's epoxy, like a marine tech steel epoxy. And what happens is you just kind of like sand everything off. I taped everything up, applied the epoxy, let it cure, and then you have a texture job, just like Macmillan uses on some of their A5 stocks and some of their other offerings. So in my personal preference, I really, really do like kind of when you're feeling and around that palm swell, building your grip, the texture is a little bit nicer than just painted fiberglass, if that makes sense. So moving on from there on the stock, we needed to jump into paint. And I think that this is probably one of the most fun parts of getting your custom rifle situated. Once you have everything fitting right, everything kind of aligning with each other and playing nicely with each other, is how are we going to paint the rifle. So as you can see, it's kind of this woodland field camo multicam job. So how I started is I sanded the whole stock down because it came olive. It was already painted. I sanded the whole stock down, roughened everything up, and then I hit the stock with a flat green primer, like an OD green primer. I wanted to make sure that it was adhering to the stock and that the paint that I put on the stock, even though it's rattle can, adhered more than just flaked off. So I wanted to have a good primer base coat on there. Now from there, I ended up taking your normal kind of camo colors, your tans, your greens, your browns. I didn't include any blacks, but tans, greens, and browns. And I used a stencil that I just laid over and I just started spraying along essentially. And what I did is I would spray it and I'd kind of step back and squint my eyes and make sure the stock was essentially, I don't want to say the same color, but it wasn't like you had a big splotchy part of like tans and then like a bunch of browns here. I just kind of wanted to make sure everything looked, I don't want to say even, because when you look at something in nature, nothing is necessarily like even, I guess, but just make sure that it looked the right way that I wanted the stock to look. So after that, we let everything cure, we put everything together, and I tell you what, it turned out great. So this was a little bit of an abbreviated video, just because the bedding portion of this is going to take a little bit longer. I'm going to make it in a separate video. So I'm going to get this up. I'm going to record the bedding video right now. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're interested in more, please stick around. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog I said hi. We'll see you on the next one.